all right, yeah, this is going to take a bit. So slow down with me, because if you rush this, you miss the actual machinery underneath the headlines. And what's happening here isn't gossip or outrage or partisan theater. It's a system under stress revealing how it actually behaves when pressure exceeds control. Let's start with something basic that almost everyone gets wrong. Power doesn't usually collapse because of one scandal. It collapses because too many small, manageable decisions pile up in the same direction until the system can no longer rebalance itself. Engineers know this. Economists know this. Anyone who's ever scaled a company past a few hundred people knows this. Feedback loops matter. Incentives matter. Delay matters. Pam Bondi didn't wake up one morning and suddenly find herself in trouble. This was built slowly, publicly, on camera, in writing. Go back to the first moment. The one that seemed harmless at the time. She goes on television and talks about the Epstein client list. Not vaguely, not hypothetically.
Pam Bondi and the Epstein list. Right back.
Releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Once you say something like that, you've created an expectation. You've told the public, lawmakers, courts, and journalists that a process exists and that you are personally responsible for it. That's fine if you intend to follow through. It's catastrophic if you don't. Then comes phase 2, and this is where things start to drift. The message changes. Suddenly, nothing to see here. Suddenly, Trump isn't in the files.
President Trump was told by the Attorney General that he is in the Jeffrey Epstein files. He was told he was in the files 2 months ago, and then last week said, no, he wasn't. He was. This was during a briefing on the findings of the Justice Department's review of the documents related to Epstein. That's according to sources familiar with the discussion. Those sources said the Justice Department's review found that the files appeared to include several unsubstantiated claims that they determined not to be credible, including those relating to Trump.
At this point, the system could have corrected. Full transparency, controlled disclosure, let the facts land where they land. Painful in the short term, stabilizing in the long term. Instead, it chose delay. Phase 3 is what I call the attic move. You bundle everything up. You put it in a box. You issue a memo. You say no further disclosure is appropriate or warranted.
The Wall Street Journal, who first reported this story, said that AG Bondi, who was joined in the briefing by her deputy Todd Blanche, who previously served as President Trump's attorney in the criminal hush money trial. The briefing took place in May, weeks before the Justice Department released a memo on July 6th attempting to close the book on Jeffrey Epstein, which said, quote, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted.
Which brings us to the part where everything accelerates. Phase 4 isn't about Epstein anymore. It's about competence. Over the last few months, the Department of Justice under Bondi doesn't look like a coherent machine.
The Trump administration's legal problems just got a whole lot worse. And this time, the person at the center of the disaster is none other than Attorney General Pam Bondi, the woman who is supposed to be running the Department of Justice and defending the administration's policies in court. But instead of competently managing the legal battles, Bondi has managed to turn a bad situation into a catastrophic one by defying a federal court order and then offering an excuse so flimsy that the judge who heard it basically laughed it out of the courtroom.
Then comes the unforced error that changes everything. Defying a federal court order. It's not politics. That's not messaging. That's a hard boundary in the system. Courts are the backstop. When you ignore them, you're not negotiating anymore. You're escalating. And when Bondi's team offered an explanation so weak that the judge effectively dismissed it with laughter, something snapped. Judges are not YouTubers. They don't perform. They don't exaggerate. When they react like that, it means the explanation failed at a basic legal level. From that moment on, this stopped being about discretion and started being about exposure. Because once you defy a court order, you put yourself personally at risk. Not symbolically. Legally, phase 5 is where consequences start to crystallize. House Democrats release new photos from Epstein's estate. Disturbing material. Contextual imagery. Not leaks. Released with legal review. At the same time, anticipation builds around a Justice Department file release scheduled for Friday. Then something even more dangerous happens. Republicans break script. Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky, not exactly a Democratic ally, openly questions the administration's handling of the Epstein files. He says, it'll be interesting if the files aren't released. That's not sarcasm. That's a threat in plain English. Massey points out something fundamental. The law requiring disclosure doesn't expire. There is no statute of limitations. Ever. That means delay isn't safety. It's just postponement. He says it outright. If there's a cover-up, the next Attorney General prosecutes the current one. Same for the FBI director. That's not activism. That's how the system is designed. Accountability can be deferred, but it can't be deleted. He also accuses Speaker Mike Johnson of lying about the Transparency Act. Johnson claimed victims would be exposed by the bill. Massey counters that 3 federal judges explicitly said no, that there are sufficient protections in place. Judges citing the statute matters more than talking points. Law beats narrative every time. Eventually. Then Representative Robert Garcia reinforces it. He says the Department of Justice must release all the files. No partial compliance. No ongoing investigation carve-out. The subpoena doesn't allow it. Oversight passed the law. Courts back it. Garcia goes further. He says Democrats are prepared to use every available tool, including court action, to force compliance. That's escalation, but it's lawful escalation. And lawful escalation is the most dangerous kind because it doesn't burn itself out. And this is where Pam Bondi's situation becomes uniquely bad. There is no pardon path. People throw around the idea of pardons like they're escape hatches. They're not. Pardons don't erase civil liability. They don't stop future prosecutions for different offenses. And they don't work against statutes with no expiration once administrations change. Anyone with basic legal sense knows this. You wait. Political cover fades. New leadership arrives. Files reopen. History does what it always does. Which means Bondi isn't just facing tomorrow. She's facing the next 10 years. If she doesn't comply, she doesn't just face criticism. She faces subpoenas, depositions, testimony under oath. Personally, on the witness stand, explaining decisions that are already documented as contradictory. If you care about how systems fail, if you care about whether laws mean anything when tested by power, if you want to understand why accountability often arrives late, but rarely never pay attention. Because this is how it actually happens. Not with explosions. With paperwork, deadlines, judges, and people realizing too late that delay isn't the same thing as escape. If you found this breakdown useful, like the video. Share it with someone who still thinks this is just noise. Subscribe if you want more deep dives that slow things down and show the mechanics instead of the theatrics. And yeah, stay curious.